While you're looking at your plan, you want to be saying, this is what we're going to be spending in 3 years to upgrade it. This is what we're going to be spending in 5 years to upgrade it. You may actually want to accelerate that. If you're going with an inexpensive network build to start with, you'll be ripping it out and replacing it or upgrading it in 18 months, 2 years. You can almost be assured of that. Okay, economic development is dependent on the network. I learned this one the hard way. My wife and I started an ISP in northern Vermont at the end of 1999. And we fully expected businesses and maybe a few residential users would jump on board. At that time, would tell people we had broadband, and they say, well, I'm already connecting at 56K. So it was an educational process. And what surprised the hell out of us is this unusual underground economy came to life. People were going out and dragging tractors out of barns and taking them apart and selling these antique tractor parts on eBay. And they were making more money than they made at their full-time job, and they quit their full-time job. Then we saw people going to yard sales and buying stuff and selling it on eBay. Then we saw people taking classes and getting distance learning happening. And before we realized it, in our little tiny community of 479 people, plus or minus, we were actually seeing people's lives being changed. Now, one of the things that Patrick Leary of Avarion said one time that really resonated with me is that it's not the networks, it's the effect that networks have on the people in your communities that we really need to be watching. And if you really want to see something change, put broadband either free or at an agreeable price into a low-income neighborhood and watch people pull themselves out of poverty. Now, not everybody, but a measurable percentage of people will actually start doing something given the freedom and the tools to do it. Now, there's a pretty good report out by Cividium that people can take or leave it at their own call. It's titled the Silver Bullet Report. And that's one that you guys might want to take a look at if you want to see some measurable data on that. Okay, this last one occurred to me in the middle of the night, and I had to get up and immediately type it down. The reality is not build it and they will come. It should be looked at as build it or they will leave. Now, I built the network in northern Vermont. I lived in a community where we had 60% senior citizens and retirees. And people that were my age, when their kids got to college age, boy, they took off of college, they took off of the big city, and they didn't come back. And if you haven't been to a rural community in America lately, you'll find that same thing happening because my 15-year-old kid isn't going to live anywhere where there isn't decent broadband. He just expects it now. And it's happening all over this country. We're actually seeing a segment of the population move because there isn't decent infrastructure in place. If you want your smaller communities to remain vibrant and you want them to be alive and you want people, even my age, to move in, give us a decent infrastructure, we'll move there. And in fact, in many ways, the rural communities have a number of things to speak to people like me. Real estate prices are less expensive, less crime. I mean, I don't think I even have to go down that list. But I can tell you, no broadband, not interested in moving there. And I would imagine, I can get a show of hands here, nobody in this audience would move to a place where it was dial-up only. So as you're looking at this problem, you may want to consider that. It's build it or they will leave. All right, influences on the future. Here we go. I talked about some external forces that may charge things. What happens when fuel costs rise? Well, we've gotten treated to $1 something going to $3 and something. What happens if gas goes to $6? Will telecommuting actually become a reality now? Will your boss actually let you sit home and log on to the internet and start doing your job? And if not, will your boss remain competitive against the companies that will? This is just one outside economic force that is going to change what we're doing and how we interact with the rest of the world. What services are going to be to continue to use as they is if gas prices go up? I was in Orlando the week before last at ISPCon, and we were talking about gas prices. Well, gas prices are going to affect plane prices. What happens to a tourist community? Well, I don't think I have to elaborate that too much. For those of you that might live on Cape Cod, you can imagine what's going to happen if gas prices go to $10 a gallon and nobody can afford to drive their 8-mile-a-gallon SUV down to the Cape. Can these networks enhance government efficiency? It's probably not a question of can they. How can these networks enhance government efficiency? And will this allow for better community access to your government? These are the kind of questions that really need to be looked at very, very seriously if you are going to go and talk to your community about becoming a responsible financial partner in building one of these networks. Now, let's face it, If you can explain to your constituency that your 80-year-old mother can now go to town meeting or see high school graduation without having to leave her home because she can flip on the TV and watch it there, or flip on a computer and watch it across IPTV, and that now maybe she can interact at a town council meeting that she feels strongly about by sitting at home and doing this wirelessly or remotely, this is value to people who desperately need it. Just one more application you can layer onto your network. Okay, virtual presence, and that's what I was just talking about. The Cisco term that I kind of enjoy is virtual adjacency, and if you think about those two words being paired together, that's kind of an interesting concept. What that means to me is I'm in the same cubicle as you are, but I can be halfway across the country. I can now choose to be part of my town council's meeting without actually getting in my car on a cold January day and driving there. I can now actually be anywhere I want and be just as effective a speaker as I am right now, just like what's happening there. And there's no reason why I physically